Hello everyone, my name is Daniel, and in this video, my friends and I are going to do a presentation about game theory of microeconomics. So I hope everyone can enjoy our video, and yeah, thank you. Okay, let's start off with the presentation. These are my friends, our group members, Shiefanny and Hartono, and let's move on. Now, the introduction. Game theory is concerned with the general analysis of strategic interaction, which can be used to study parlor games, political negotiation, and economic behavior. Okay, so next we have the payoff matrix of a game. As you can see, there's this figure on the left hand side. We have player A and player B. We have two players in this game with finite number of strategies, which can represent economic choices like raise price or lower price. This one is the strategies. So let's move on to the gameplay. So in person A's viewpoint, it is always better for him to say bottom since his payoffs from that choice are always better than their corresponding entries. So it is better for A to choose bottom here because the value of payoffs here is greater than the top one. 2 and 1 is greater than 1 and 0. And it also works for the B. It is always better for B to say left since 2 and 1 dominate 1 and 0, as you can see right here. 2 and 1, 2 and 1, and 1 and 0, like that. Okay, so in this case, we have a dominant strategy. There is one optimal choice of strategy for each player, no matter what the other player does. So whichever choice B makes, player A will get a higher payoff if he plays bottom. And it makes sense for A to play bottom because it is more beneficial for A to play at the bottom. And then whichever choice A makes, B will get a higher payoff if he plays left. So for A, it is more beneficial if he plays bottom, and then for B is the left one because it's like that. So next we're going to learn about Nash equilibrium. A Nash equilibrium can be interpreted as a pair of expectations about each person's choice. Now, Nash equilibrium has two characteristics. The first one is neither person knows what the other person will do when he has to make his own choice of strategy. And then the second one, when the other person's choice is revealed, neither individual wants to change his behavior or change his strategy before. Now, here, if B chooses left strategy here, the payoffs to A is 2 or 0. And if B chooses right, the payoff to A is 0 and 1. Now this means that when B chooses left, A would want to choose top, and when B chooses right, A would want to choose bottom. Now the what we can learn here is A's optimal choice depends on what he thinks B will do. So there's relation between A and B. A's choice depends on what he thinks B will do. So yeah. Now let's continue to mixed strategies. Mixed strategy allows the agents or players to randomize their strategies to assign a probability to each choice and to play their choices according to those probabilities. A Nash equilibrium in mixed strategies refers to an equilibrium in which each agent chooses the optimal frequency with which which to play his strategies given the frequency choices of the other agents. So there is also a Nash equilibrium in mixed strategies. So yeah, as you can see on the left hand side, we have the table. There says that it pure strategies. So pure strategies means that each agent is making one choice of strategy and sticking to that particular strategy. But we're going to talk about mixed strategies. So yeah, uh, let's talk about the gameplay. If A and B follow the mixed strategies given above of playing each of their choices half the time, then they will have a probability of a quarter of ending up in each of the four cells in the payoff matrix. Thus, the average payoff to A will be 0 and the average payoff to B will be half. So yeah, that's all for mixed strategies. And for the next part, we're going to learn. Oops. We're going to learn about the prisoner's dilemma, which will be explained by my friend. Thank you so much.
So, about the prisoner's dilemma. As we can see here in the table that this is the player A and this is the player B. And both of them is faced only two options. It is either to confess or deny. But as you can see here in the table, zoom, if both of them confess, so both of them will be present in 3 months. But if one of them is denied, so the one who deny it but the other is confess is will be punished for 6 months in the prison. But if both of them deny about the case, both of them only got prison for 1 month. So as we can see here, either the player A or player B better choose to off confessing, because it confessed the longer time in prison will be only 3 months. As I told before, if one of them is confessed but one of them is not confessing, so the one who confess will get 6 months in prison. But better you confess, because if you confess and the other is confessed, you will be only in prison for 3 months. So as we can see here, if both choose to confess, this is called as the Pareto inefficient. But the better way is both of them choose to not confess. So they should make a deal first to not confess each other. This is called the Pareto efficient, because there's no better option than this option. That's why this is called by the Pareto efficient. But of course, the Pareto efficient is really hard, because they should cooperate first and also trust each other to prevent the risks like that. So the prisoner's dilemma is a particular game in which the Pareto efficient outcome is strategically dominated by an inefficient income. So the dilemma here is when the inefficient is dominate the efficient one. And the prisoner's dilemma applies to a wide range of economic and political phenomena. Results depend on whether you are playing a one-shot game or whether the game is to be repeated an indefinite number of times. If a prisoner's dilemma is repeated an indefinite number of times, then it is possible that the Pareto efficient outcome may result from rational play. So about the repeated games. Repeated games is actually same with before, but the difference here is that the games will be repeated, but the players is still the same one. So each player has the opportunity to establish the reputation for cooperation. So in this repeated games, because it's not only once, they have more time to cooperate each other. They have more time to deal with what should they come like that. And this strategy will be viable or not depends on whether the game is going to play a fixed number of time or an indefinite number of time. And for the fixed round or fixed number, if there's no way to enforce cooperation on the last round, there will be no way to enforce cooperation on the next to the last round. It's like when the fixed number is only 10 rounds, and you can see that in the previous rounds, example in the ninth round, you see that the opponent is not going as planned or defect the agreement between you. So you may conclude that in the next round later, she or he, your opponent, will do the same thing. It is, he will defect the deal or agreement before. That's why we should learn about the previous result. How did the opponent behavior? And for the indefinite round, first, because it is indefinite round, so we will not know how many rounds will end the games or what. So we should influence the others, influence the opponent's behavior. And we also should do the tit for tat strategy. What is tit for tat strategy? Tit for tat is like we should do what the opponents did before. So I will give you the example. Let's say in the first round, the opponent is suddenly defect the case or the game. So on the next round, the second round, you must also defect it. So it will give an immediate punishment, because once you defect, and you will also be defected. And also forgiving. Why is that this is forgiving? Because it's quite fair enough. We can see that we only defect the others or defect the opponents once when he or she or the opponents also do it once. So we will really become really fair if in each defection we will only once defect them, like that. Enforcing a cartel, the situation where they are both cooperating to maintain the monopoly outcome. However, if the game is repeated an indefinite number of times, there may be other possible outcomes. Real-life cartels sometimes appear to employ tit-for-tat strategies. And when one firm tries to cheat, all firms will cut their price as to punish the defectors. This kind of tit-for-tat strategy was apparently able to support the cartel arrangement for some time. So the example for tit-for-tat in airplane pricing. So actually, the Northwest lowered fares on night flight from Minneapolis to various West Coast cities. It is purpose to fill the empty seat. But we can see that the continual fare cuts were set to expire 1 or 2 days after they were introduced. So it's quite tricky, or the marketing strategies is really different. That's why later on the Continental will ask the Northwest to do the same thing like what the Continent do. So the Northwest should change the fares or the cut fares at night. And the implicit rules of competition in duopoly airline market seems to be the following. First, if the other firms keep its price high, so I should keep it price high too. So this is more like we do what the opponent do. If they set the higher price, so we also will set the higher price, like that. But if the other firms cut its price, I will pay the tit for tat and cut my prices in response. It's same like above, but this is the other situation when the opponent is cut their price, so We also play the tick for that strategy before is by following what they do, what the opponent do. So we also cut our price too. And both firms live by golden rules. It said that do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This threat of retaliation then served to keep all price high.
So continuing on my partner's presentation, now I'm going to talk about sequential games and also the game of entry deterrence. My name is Hartono Ongkojoyo. My student number is 130419008. And today I'm going to talk about sequential games and also game of entry deterrence. So, sequential games is a game where only one player chooses their action before the others chooses theirs. Importantly, the later players must have a certain information of the first choice. Otherwise, the difference in time would have no strategic effect. So basically, sequential games is where you take consideration of if you do A, then your opponents might do this. If you do B, then your opponent might do other things, right? So you in sequential games you take those things into consideration, and the game is basically in turn. A good example of a sequential game is actually chess, where you think about what your opponent is actually going to do after you move, etc. Right? So this is a good example where Budi has action A and B, and Eric has a response. So what would be a good move for Budi? If he goes A, then these are the numbers, and Budi goes B, and these are also the numbers. So what is the best move for Budi? The best move for Budi is that he would choose B. Why? Because if he chooses B, then he will probably, at the least, he's probably going to get 5. Because Eric is very consequential and he thinks rationally, he wants to get as many points as he can. And if Budi chooses B, then Eric is probably wanting to go 9 other than 6, right? So Eric is probably going to go with this, and Budi is probably going to take this into consideration and chooses B. But if Budi chooses A, then he would probably get nothing. Why? Because Eric has a choice of getting a 6 or a 3, where if he's very rational, he's probably going to choose 6. And probably in the end, Budi is probably going to get 0, right? If he chooses A. So yes, a sequential game focuses on these kind of things. Another good example is that a game between Baby Habakuk and also Zelika. So if Baby Habakuk chooses action A or B, will be the most best and the optimum result of it. So I think the most optimum result of Baby Habakuk getting best result is probably going to be A. Why? Because if he chooses B, then Zelika is probably going to get H, right? If Zelika gets H, chooses H, you're probably going to get 6. But if Baby Habakuk chooses A, this is actually wrong. Baby Habakuk should probably chooses A, and Zelika is probably going to get D. Forget about the C. That was wrong. So Zelika, if Baby Habakuk chooses A, then Zelika is probably going to get D because Zelika can get more and more points on that side. But and Baby Habakuk can get the optimum result of 7, which is more better than Zelika, right? So moving on into game of entry deterrence. So entry deterrence refers to any action taken by an existing business owner in a particular market that discourages potential entrants from entering into competition in that market, such as actions or barriers to entry, can include hostile takeovers, product differentiation through heavy spending of new product developments, capacity expansion to achieve lower unit costs, and also predatory pricing. Although many barriers to entry are created by incumbents, timing can also act as a barriers to entry. As a potential entrants are less likely to enter into a market, it will take a significant amount of time for them to catch up to an incumbent. So a good example is this, where the entrant has two options, whether to stay out or enter the market. So if the entrant chooses to stay out, whether the incumbent fight or not, it will be the same, right? It does not affect anyone because there's not really anything that is actually happening. There's no action that is being done because the entrant doesn't chooses to do anything. But if the entrant chooses to enter, there are two possibilities. Firstly, the incumbent could fight, which is probably what is going to happen, or the incumbent might not fight and not do anything, which is not likely to happen. Why? Because the incumbent probably want to have a certain amount of monopoly power where he wants to keep that power and not wanting to let it go, such as having a predatory price, for instance, right? Getting discounting are also one of the things that the incumbent has because they have a certain amount of monopoly power and they also have a really better chance of holding the power in that market. So the basic understanding of game entry deterrence is that there's an incumbent firm that has some degree of power and keeps that power and making those people not able entrants not able to enter the market. And the basic understanding is of sequential games is that you need to think about what your opponents are going to do after you move, and you need to choose the optimum result to get whether A or B, which is the most optimum result of those of your opponents probably going to react. I think that is all that we can say. If you have any question to our group about uh, this particular part of the book or in microeconomics for management, feel free to ask questions to me or Daniel or Shiefanny. Thank you.